I think I've just started to enter my I don't give a fuck era, and I'm kind of happy with it. I always had this vision of older people. No shade to older people. I'm becoming one of you. I'm joining the joining the club. But I always had this vision of like older people who are walking in the world and they are just being themselves. They don't really give a shit about our people's opinion. If something bad happened to them, they just like maybe they have one day off and then they are back, and they just kind of work in the world with some kind of, I would say, inner peace about who they are and what's happening to them. That I always wonder if it was actually just some people's personality or if it was actually with age. And I think that I'm starting to lean towards that a little bit more. So it might have been age actually. And I'm trying to do it in a way that obviously is mature. I'm not trying to become some kind of really like reckless person who just goes crazy and becomes a problem for everyone around them. But I'm trying to really like lean into this. Actually, I have inner peace and it needs to be brought out there in the world in a way that is obvious to people, and that I can, just um, yeah, learn to handle what bothers me in a way that is better, that is smoother, that does not throw me off my game for weeks, and not doesn't distract me from really the thing that I enjoy in life and the thing that I want to achieve in life. And that's a work in progress. I can say I'm just entering this era, so I think I probably have still more lessons to learn and more ways the universe is going to test if I've learned the lessons or not. But yeah, I'm currently focusing on three big categories, and always trying to see how I'm doing in these different areas of being unbothered and learning the art of it. So yeah, the first thing I'm trying to be really unbothered about are my own mistakes and the problem that I create for myself. Um, just to give you a very fresh example, 2 days ago, I ended up locking myself out of my bedroom in my apartment. And because I had issues with my landlord recently, I decided not to call her, but instead call a person to come and open the lock. And I thought somehow this was going to be just an easy, like pick the lock and 5 minutes and it's gone. And actually, it ended up they had to destroy the lock and replace it completely. And I ended up having to pay 450 quid at 9 p.m. on a Friday night out of the blue. So this was a mistake that I brought to myself by making a wrong decision. To not call my landlord, because we could have done it in a way that would not have cost me that much money. So that was something that obviously bothered me a little bit. I'm still recovering from that stupidity, but I'm always like, if you make mistakes and you do things to yourself, then you have to handle them. And I think one of the things that I learned through that is also yeah, how do you process your own mistakes and your own problems, because they can bother you if you are just letting them drain you into guilt, into shame or everything else. And what I realized really is right now I have already good techniques around it. The first thing is to let my body and my mind process it. So don't pretend that it's okay if it's not, but just let things happen. Let take time to rest a little bit, because then you can go faster back into your normal state. Also, looking at where you land in grief, because when you make a mistake like this or you create a problem, your brain is going to go through the grief cycle. So sometimes if you deny things, or if you're trying to bargain and start to imagine things you could have done differently, your brain is stuck in more like a in more like the destructive part of the grief process, rather than if you are sad about it and you cry about it, which is okay, or if you see that you are directly accepting the reality and say, okay, yeah, I made a mistake, I'm going to pay for the consequences. You are already faster out of the grief process, and that's also healthier in terms of how long you're going to be stuck into that situation specifically. So yeah, just taking full ownership is something I realize I do more or less quite well already. But it's important to just watch out. Are you like resisting, or are you actually just handling the situation as it is, because that's the reality of what it is. What I also seen in these circumstances is that reminding myself that, hey, everything is temporary and I'm always a very smart person. I can find solutions. I can figure it out. Reminding my brain as well that I'm safe. Obviously I've lost a bit of money in that specific case, but I'm still in a safe position. Like nothing is going to happen drastically bad tomorrow. So it's like, thinking more from this place of, if a problem happens, just don't fixate yourself on, oh, it's going to be like this forever, or it's going to impact my entire life, but just having this mindset of stepping back a little bit and breathing through it, and just taking ownership in a healthy way is something that I found very important, to not let these type of things bother you for too long. It will bother you, but not like taking weeks out of your game, and And also in there, also in terms of like, not being bothered by my own mistake and problems, sometimes I realize I create them myself because I do not express what I mean, or I do not set boundaries with people or things like this, or I take a decision too fast. So noticing where are the things that are your responsibility that you can do different, and learning from there is also very important. So for instance, I know next time that I'm in a very stressful situation, I will take a breather, take a step back, think about what are my options, different options. Maybe go on ChatGPT and ask, hey, ChatGPT, this is my current situation. I'm very stressed about it. Give me some like logical, rational thinking there, so it can like de-escalate a little bit and give it a little bit more time than what I did this in this specific situation. So just learning how you create your own problems, and how you make mistakes and where they came from and what you could do differently the next time. I think that's also a very helpful process that will help being less bothered, because you will create less of it, hopefully. Hopefully. But yeah. So yeah, that's the first thing I try to be unbothered about, and it's my own mistakes and the problem that I create. The second thing I try to be less bothered about are other people's behaviors, other people's mistakes, and other people's problems, which is the other side of the equation. So one of the things I'm doing more and more recently is really checking, first of all, my capacity. So if somebody comes and there is a problem or something, it's like not everything is always my problem to deal with. Just because it's somebody's problem doesn't mean I have to carry that. So this is a mindset that I started applying, because I realize sometimes I get dragged into trying to help people or trying to help them find a solution. But it's also like, okay, is that really my role here? Is that really something I need to give that much attention? And if you make better decisions like this and just take a step back a little bit, I might end up not in situations where I would have ended up otherwise, and that means I can be less bothered as well in general. And I'm also assessing whether the problems or the behaviors or anything that's happening is creating drama. It's creating something meaningless that I should definitely not be engaging with. So I'm also, is it like a real problem? Is it an important problem? Is that an urgent problem? All these things I'm trying to really be more mindful about, if I engage or if I don't, and having some more like critical thinking around it. I found it very helpful to, just slow down situations, and sometimes they resolve themselves, because if I slow down and I ask the right questions or I set the right boundaries, then things are going to, to solve themselves. And that means also practicing also my own communication. If I set a boundary, or if I say no, or if I let people deal with their own problems, or if they're creating drama and I'm setting a boundary so that they stop doing that. It's also practicing my own communication and finding ways to be direct, but also kind and compassionate, and in a way that feels that I've done the right thing for me, like my standards have been met. Doesn't mean that they are going to accept it, but at least that I feel proud about how I've done the things. And I also pay attention not just about the problems or behaviors or any kind of situation, but also how the people behave in general, and whether or not these people are worth having in my life. That's also another way to be unbothered, is to make sure that you have the right quality of people. And sometimes that means, being very sharp around, what you notice about them. And I tend to always check, emotional maturity as a big one. Like, are people, if something happens to them, how are they communicating about it? How are they thinking through? Are they trying to find solutions, or are they more somebody who is like gets negative or start thinking with scarcity or things like this? If they make a mistake, do they apologize? Like a little bit more on maturity levels in general. That I try to assess where they are. It's okay if they are at another level than me, but I know if it's a way lower level, then I'm also going to be impacted. So it's like thinking about whether these people should be in my life to begin with. I also check, obviously any kind of like manipulative behaviors or like really shady behavior that's I stay away from. I don't like people who lie in my life. And just also checking, if they're operating from fear is another big thing I look at, because a lot of people sometimes are very insecure, or they have a lot of concerns and worries, and they tend to project that out there in the world. And I know for me, this is the type of people who can really drive my energy down and really actually bother me long term, and create issues long term. So I also try to check where they are. And just keeping my circle of people smaller maybe, but at least having a high quality range of people, it's way easier to deal with that. So making sure that I'm getting less bothered by other people's behavior and a problem by checking the quality of people I let in, and then if there is a situation or a problem, deciding if I want to engage with it, deciding if it's meaningful, trying to apply more critical thinking around it, to basically solve the situation before it gets worse, or decide to not engage with the situation at all because it's not worth my time. So yeah, that's the second one. And the third one, I'm trying to be less bothered by the world in general. This is a bigger statement, but I feel sometimes in the world there are lots of like things like society pressure or norms, or things I should have been doing already in my 40s that I haven't done yet, or any kind of cliches and any kind of bad news and politics and stuff. Like there is so much noise out there that sometimes I'm like, so many things that could be grabbing my attention and occupy my brain. And that actually bothers me because it distracts me from doing things that could actually make my life better. So I try also to get unbothered by all these things and really protect my capacity. So I'm not reading news, for instance. I'm making sure that what I read on social media is like really curated, good information. So I everything I watch is kind of like constructive, or it's teaching me something, or it's like it gives me something rather than take from me. And trying to choose good sources of information. And I also try to see what I do with my time also need to match that. So if I do creative things, then I'm creating something that's constructive versus doing nothing and being stuck in my thought or whatever. So I'm also trying to feed my brain and myself with things that are positive sources of evolution. And I feel that if I can do this most of the time, it's not always possible, but if I can control most of the time and do as much as possible, that would make me feel actually I controlled my day and I've put good stuff in there, then it's also easier to be less bothered when you get distracted, or when you go back to the world, then you get some noise, because that's part of it. And also, expressing myself and trying to be somebody who is encouraging other people to be themselves, to be authentic. This also goes against all the other noise around societal norms and any pressure you might feel. And I feel it's just like me fighting against that, but in a way that is actually productive, and it's creative, and it's an act of creation. And yeah, these are the things that I'm trying to implement to be unbothered and to be, that type of person who goes out there in the world with as much peace as possible, as much resilience or capacity to bounce back when something happens, whether it's from my own doing or from somebody else doing, or it's just the world in general that is demanding too much attention from me, and for the wrong reasons, obviously not for the right ones. But yeah, that's how I'm trying to be unbothered. Obviously, I'm not expecting to be unbothered every single day for everything, because I don't think it's realistic. And I think there will always be bad things happening, and moments where I just react like a human being and I have less peace, or I get a bit destabilized from that. But I think it's still it still gives me more freedom to know that I can handle it, and I can handle it differently and better and faster. So yeah, surely there will be more experience coming to teach me more about that. I'll keep you posted around this. And if you have best techniques for yourself, if you have things that makes you like, you're like, yes, I'm also in my I don't give a fuck era and I'm really enjoying that, and you want to share, put it in the comments. I will read that with with enthusiasm. And I see you tomorrow for another video.